Imagine being estranged from your family for years, carrying a quiet ache of longing. What if one day, a single sentence, a single moment, shattered all your fears and brought you back home? That's exactly how Daniel's story begins. A journey sparked by an inspiring conference with Keanu Reeves. Will it reconnect the broken bonds of his past? Are you ready for this emotional ride? In the shadow of broken bonds, Daniel was a 24-year-old living in New York City. He worked in a bustling office on the 20th floor of a skyscraper, surrounded by rows of desks, yet an unshakable restlessness followed him day and night. Every morning, he'd wake up, blend into the crowded subway commute, and head to work. But deep down, an older, sharper pain lingered. The broken ties with his family and the longing he'd buried for years. Back in high school, a bitter conflict had driven a wedge between him and his parents, growing wider until Daniel, at just 18, left home for good. Since that day, he hadn't set foot in the family house. Whether out of pride or fear, he wasn't quite sure. During the weekdays at work or weekend hangouts with friends, a question gnawed at him. Will I ever be brave enough to apologize, to ask for forgiveness? One morning, while staring at his computer screen in the office, a notification caught his eye. Keanu Reeves on Loss and Reconnection. A conference. It wasn't the kind of event that would usually grab his attention, but the phrase reconnection pierced his heart like a dagger. Before he knew it, he was filling out the registration form. Maybe he was searching for a way forward, or maybe this was a lifeline he'd stumbled upon. There might be something here for me, he thought, signing up with a fleeting burst of courage. That evening, as he rode the subway home, earbuds in and the crowd pressing around him, his mind wouldn't quiet down. Memories flooded back. The moment his parents' eyes seemed to push him away, his dad's face a mix of disappointment and anger, his mom silently crying as he walked out. How can someone be so far from family and still hurt this much? He wondered. Yet, the idea of attending the conference sparked a strange sense of hope. Knowing that someone as famous as Keanu Reeves would speak on such a personal topic felt oddly compelling. Maybe Daniel could hear how the actor had overcome his own losses, find some clues to guide his own path. Can he really inspire people in real life? Not just on screen. He couldn't help but ask himself. Ultimately, Daniel knew he'd only find answers by showing up. That night, as he lay in bed, a quiet excitement stirred within him, one he couldn't quite admit to himself. His thoughts swirled. Is it too late to go back? Would an apology even matter now? Or will this conference just give me false hope? But his curiosity outweighed his fears. As he closed his eyes, he had no idea that the next day might just be the turning point of his life. And so, in the shadow of broken bonds, the first chapter of Daniel's story brought him to the edge of a profound change. On one side was the relentless rhythm of the city. On the other, the suffocating weight of longing for his family. Did Daniel's ache of longing resonate with you? Share this story with a friend who's far from their family. They might find the courage Daniel's seeking. In the comments, tell us about a longing you've kept buried deep inside. What will Daniel encounter at the conference? Will Keanu Reeves' words ignite a spark that changes his life? In the next chapter, an unexpected moment will shake Daniel to his core. Don't miss an unexpected encounter at the conference. Daniel found himself outside a fancy midtown hotel on the first morning of the weekend, standing in front of the conference venue. From the outside, the building looked like it typically hosted corporate events, sleek and polished. He stepped inside, approached the registration desk, and a staff member quickly checked his name off the list, handing him a name tag. In bold letters, it read, Keanu Reeves on Loss and Reconnection. Seeing those words again sent a mix of excitement and a faint shiver through him. Finding an empty seat in the conference hall wasn't hard, but the crowd around him was more diverse than he'd expected. Some people seemed to be there out of pure admiration for Keanu Reeves, while others genuinely appeared to care about the theme of loss and reconnection. As Daniel listened to the hushed conversations around him, he tried to make sense of why so many people from different walks of life had gathered for the same reason. He wasn't even sure what he was hoping for, just that he needed a spark. Soon the lights in the room dimmed slightly, and the moment everyone had been waiting for arrived. Keanu Reeves walked in through a side door, dressed simply, his steps calm and unhurried. A polite wave of applause swept through the room. Daniel had expected a Hollywood star to make a grand entrance with bodyguards and flashing cameras, but there was none of that here. Keanu took the stage, microphone in hand, and looked out at the audience with warm, gentle eyes. The Loss and Reconnection Conference felt less like a formal presentation and more like an intimate conversation. Keanu started by sharing stories from his own life, about what it meant to lose loved ones, the struggle of waking up each day and breathing through the emptiness in your heart. As Daniel listened to Keanu's quiet reflections on personal pain, scenes from the actor's movies flashed in his mind. But this wasn't a film set, and these weren't scripted lines. This was a real man speaking from the heart. Time slipped away as Daniel sat, captivated by the talk. When Keanu spoke about family, saying, "We all break those closest to us sometimes, or they break us," it struck a chord deep within Daniel. The tangled emotions he felt toward his mom and dad seemed to live in those words. How can someone so famous and successful describe exactly what I'm going through? He thought. At one point, the floor opened for questions, and a few hands shot up. A young woman shared that she'd lost her brother at a young age and still didn't know how to cope with the void. Keanu listened intently, then offered gentle advice. Your tears aren't just a sign of loss, they're a sign of love. Sometimes pain shows how much love you hold. Daniel leaned back in his chair, searching for the words to describe his own pain. Had he lost his family emotionally, even if not physically, or had he pushed them out of his life without realizing it? The question, "Is it too late?" echoed in his mind, louder than ever. As the second session began, Keanu paced the stage, holding the mic and asking the crowd heartfelt questions. How would you describe your own losses? When walls come up between us and our loved ones, what does it take to tear them down? Volunteers in the audience shared their thoughts. Daniel felt a surge of bravery and almost raised his hand, but fear got the better of him. He wasn't ready to speak up, not yet. It felt like whatever he'd say might change his whole life. Toward the end of the session, Keanu shared a story from a movie set, how continuing work after losing someone wasn't about hiding his grief, but rather finding refuge in it. But in the end, he said, no matter how much you run, you have to face it. A small round of applause broke out, but Daniel was too lost in thought to join in, replaying the words in his head. You have to face it. When Keanu finished his talk and left the stage, a gentle buzz filled the room. Everyone seemed moved, whispering in small groups. Daniel took a deep breath, stood up, and slipped out through the nearest door. The first half of the conference was over, and a 15-minute break had begun. He joined the crowd, found a bench in the hallway, and sat down. A growing urge was building inside him. I think I have to face my family. But fear still clung to him, refusing to let go. Did Keanu's heartfelt words pull you in like they did Daniel? Share this journey with a friend who's far from their family. Maybe you'll spark a light for them too. In the comments, share a moment when you had to face something tough, and let's grow this story together as a community. Will Keanu's words give Daniel the courage he needs to face his family? In the second half of the conference, he'll ask the most important question of his life. Don't miss Daniel opening his heart in the next chapter. Keanu Reeves' words and the weight of loss. As the second session of the conference began, Daniel glanced at his name tag again. Loss and reconnection seemed to speak straight to his soul. Back in the hall, the air buzzed with anticipation and curiosity. People seemed eager for more of Keanu Reeves' stories, and Daniel settled into his seat, ready to let the moment carry him. The stage lit up again, and Keanu walked out, microphone in hand, his voice clear and warm for everyone to hear. He picked up where he'd left off, diving deeper into the facing of loss, sharing more personal stories. Every word carried a heartfelt warmth that seemed to touch everyone in the room. He wasn't talking about movie sets or red carpets. He was sharing raw human experiences. Life hits us hardest where we're most vulnerable. He began, when you lose someone you love, it leaves a gaping hole in your heart. But sometimes that hole can open the door to greater love, to new connections, because pain also reminds you how much you're capable of loving. Daniel found himself leaning forward, hanging on every word. Keanu's definition of loss felt broader than just death. Losing a connection with family could be a loss too. A soft murmur rippled through the crowd. It seemed like everyone was confronting their own regrets, fears, and pain. In this part of the talk, Keanu got even more personal. He spoke about loved ones he'd lost, the emotional lows he'd faced, his eyes glistening at times, a faint smile appearing at others. Daniel thought, even famous people feel this kind of pain, shedding the sense of distance he'd felt before. In that moment, he realized there was no gap between them. They were both human, both shaped by loss. Soon, the floor opened for more questions. This time, Daniel felt a flicker of bravery. He tried to steel himself, but his heart pounded like a drum in his chest. Still, he seized a quiet moment and raised his hand. A staff member handed him a microphone. Daniel cleared his throat, trying to steady his shaky voice. I'm estranged from my family. Years ago, after a big fight, I left home. I cut them off. Or maybe they pushed me away. I don't know. But now, I realize I miss them. I'm scared to go back. Is it too late? A few heads turned toward him, and he felt his face flush. But Keanu's eyes met his, shining with deep compassion. With a gentle smile, he lifted the mic. I completely understand where you're coming from. Loss doesn't always mean someone passing away. Sometimes the walls we build with our family are a kind of loss too. The real question is how brave we can be to tear those walls down. And I think since you came here and shared this, your heart is already telling you that you want to reconnect. Daniel's throat tightened as he heard those words. He glanced around. No one seemed to judge him. Instead, he felt a wave of support in the room. Keanu continued, even when you think it's too late, you can still open a door. It's all about finding the courage to take that step. Those lost connections can come alive again with just a few words. An apology, a phone call. If you truly want it, it's never too late. That was it. The exact words Daniel needed. It's never too late. A small round of applause broke out, and a few people nodded in support. His eyes brimming with tears, Daniel thanked Keanu and set the mic down. His heart raced, but it also felt lighter, as if someone had whispered, "Don't be afraid, just start." The session continued with more questions and Keanu's heartfelt responses. He wrapped up with a brief closing, emphasizing that nothing in life, no matter what you've lost, is more powerful than a single brave step. Daniel stared at the stage, thinking, why did I wait so long? My family never completely rejected me. Maybe this wall was built by my own fears. Did Daniel's courage to speak up inspire you too? Share this story with a loved one you've been distant from. It might give them the push they need. In the comments, tell us about a time you found the bravery to take a step forward. And let's cheer Daniel on with a heart. Will Keanu's powerful words push Daniel to finally face his family? What kind of welcome awaits him when he returns home? Don't miss Daniel's emotional confrontation in the next chapter, a quiet reckoning, facing his family. The day after the conference, Daniel woke up early, his mind still buzzing. He'd barely slept. Keanu Reeves' words replayed in his head, keeping him awake. A mix of excitement and anxiety swirled inside him, stronger than ever. Part of him urged, call them now, talk, while another part whispered, what if they reject you? What if they lash out? Finally, he packed a few clothes into a backpack and headed out. With quick steps, he made his way to the nearby bus station. He hadn't planned what he'd do or say when he reached his family's doorstep, but the powerful feeling of you have to take a step was unstoppable. Keanu's words from the conference, face your fears and you might just open a door you thought was closed, seemed to ease all his doubts. At the station, he learned a bus to a small town was leaving in half an hour, the exact route to his family's home. Without hesitating, he bought a ticket. Sitting in the waiting area, his heart pounded. He hadn't spoken properly to his mom or dad in years, hadn't even looked them in the eye. What if I see that disappointment in their eyes again? He thought, but a faint hope glimmered. Maybe they've been waiting for me too. The bus ride felt long. Staring out the window, the passing scenery took Daniel back to his childhood. His dad used to take him fishing, and his mom would greet them by the lake with homemade sandwiches. Those happy days had given way to the big fight that led to his departure, leaving without a backward glance. Was I really right to hold on to that anger for so long? He wondered. The fire of his teenage years had cooled, leaving behind an empty void. After a few hours, the bus pulled into the station. Daniel adjusted his backpack and took a deep breath. Instead of taking a cab, he decided to walk home. The streets felt both familiar and foreign. The old corner store, the park he used to run through, the wooded area where he'd played ball as a kid. Everything reminded him of how much he'd grown, how much had changed, yet one feeling stayed the same. This is home. When he reached his family's street, his heart raced. He paused on the opposite sidewalk, watching the house from a distance. The flower beds in the yard looked wilted. The fence needed repair, but there were signs of life. A window was open. He thought he heard the clatter of pots from inside. So they're still living the same life, he murmured to himself. For a moment, he considered turning back and running away. His heart screamed, "Don't do it." But then he closed his eyes, recalling Keanu's words about a brave first step. Maybe this was his second step. Coming this far, the first had been attending the conference. Now, he had to walk up to that door. He approached the garden gate, his knees trembling. The rusty hinges creaked as he pushed it open. A flood of memories hit him. His mom calling his name, his dad setting the table for dinner, the joyful days chasing his little brother around. It all played before his eyes like a movie reel. Finally, he pressed the doorbell. Footsteps approached from inside, and Daniel's mouth went dry, his hands ice cold. He had no idea who would answer. His mom, his dad, or maybe his younger sibling. The door cracked open, and there stood his mom. For a moment, neither of them could find words. The years of distance between Daniel and his mom seemed to shrink in that doorway as their eyes met. Her face lit up with shock and joy, her eyes filling with tears. "Dan," she whispered, as if she couldn't believe it, as if she were dreaming. Daniel struggled to speak. "Mom," he managed to whisper. I came to talk, to apologize, maybe explain everything." His voice broke. He didn't know how to continue. But his mom didn't wait. She flung the door wide open and wrapped him in a tight hug. In that moment, a dam broke inside Daniel. He closed his eyes tight, breathing in the familiar scent of her hair, feeling the warmth of her embrace. From inside, his dad's voice called out, "Who's there?" His mom replied, "Come see," and Daniel stepped into the living room. His dad stood up, the TV still on in the background, his expression a mix of shock, curiosity, a hint of anger, and a deep well of longing. All at once, Daniel swallowed hard, meeting his dad's gaze. The fear burning inside him suddenly calmed. He remembered the big fight from years ago, the harsh words they'd exchanged, and his face flushed with shame, but this time he wasn't running away. His dad hesitated for a moment, then opened his arms slightly. "Welcome home, son," he said, his voice trembling, betraying the flood of emotions beneath. Daniel hadn't expected this softened tone. As they hugged, all the pride, anger, and fear inside him melted into tears. It was a quiet, earth-shaking moment of reconciliation. That evening, Daniel sat at the table with his mom and dad. The weight of years of longing shimmered in their eyes. Daniel spoke the hardest words. "I'm sorry, I pulled away. I messed up." His dad, too, admitted, "Maybe we held you too tight, didn't give you the freedom you needed. We regret that." A quiet reckoning unfolded in the house. At times it got heated, old wounds reopening, but Daniel didn't stay silent or run. He listened and spoke, carrying the weight of every moment. By midnight, Daniel found himself in his old room, surrounded by memories. The shelves still held the little trophies and books from his childhood. "Why did I wait so long?" he asked himself. But Keanu's words echoed in his mind. Maybe it's never too late. Did Daniel's emotional reunion bring tears to your eyes too? Send this story to your family. It might be the perfect time for a big hug. In the comments, share your own story of making amends, and let's make this journey even more meaningful together. Will Daniel find peace in his old room after these emotional days with his family? And how will Keanu Reeves' inspiration lead to more change in his life? Discover Daniel's journey of starting anew in the next chapter, turning a new page. The next morning, Daniel opened his eyes in his childhood bedroom. The peace and lightness he felt were sensations he hadn't experienced in years. He got up, still carrying the sweet exhaustion from the day before, and opened the window to look outside. The sun bathed the street in light, a cool morning breeze drifting in. Once every corner of this house had felt suffocating, but now it was the home he'd longed for. He walked into the kitchen, where his mom was already up, quietly preparing breakfast. Their eyes met, and a wide smile spread across her face. "Good morning," Daniel said, and she responded with joy. The warmth between them felt like it had washed away the rust of yesterday's hurts. His dad wasn't around yet, probably tinkering in his little workshop. Daniel sat down and looked at the breakfast table. The smell of toasted bread and freshly brewed tea stirred a wave of nostalgia. Years ago, he'd sit here in the mornings while his parents sent him off to school. "I've missed this so much," he thought. Soon, his dad joined them, wearing an old shirt, a hesitant smile on his face. When their eyes met, he said "morning," in a cautious tone. After the emotional reckoning the night before, they were both still finding their footing with words. But as his dad sat down, Daniel saw a sense of relief in his eyes. The pain of all those years wouldn't vanish overnight, but a small seed of peace had taken root. Over breakfast, his parents asked about Daniel's life, what he did for work, where he lived, who his friends were. At first he felt nervous, but as he shared, he relaxed. He didn't feel the need to defend himself, brace for criticism, or get angry anymore. Back in the day, sitting at this table often led to arguments. Now their questions felt genuine, supportive. At one point, his dad admitted, "I wish we'd listened to you more back then," his voice heavy with regret. Daniel replied honestly, "I was too impulsive too, I'm sorry." Those words wouldn't heal everything, but they loosened the barbed wire of the past just a little. After breakfast, Daniel helped his mom with the dishes. Then his dad said, "Come on, let me show you the workshop," pulling him along. The workshop was a small room where his dad, now retired, had returned to an old passion crafting small wooden tools. Daniel admired the tools in the corner as his dad showed off the little wooden boxes he'd made. "I sell these as gifts sometimes." Daniel had never imagined his dad taking up such a calm, creative hobby. Clearly, his dad had changed, finding new ways to live life. "The angry man I knew when I lived here is gone, replaced by someone gentler," Daniel thought, and it made him glad. They spent the day together as a family, sharing small conversations. Sometimes they laughed, sometimes they felt the weight of the past. Daniel kept recalling Keanu's words from the conference. "Loss and connection live inside us at the same time. Our future depends on how much we nurture them." He understood now that this house had once been a place of great loss, but he could rebuild that connection if he chose to. In the afternoon, his mom was in the yard, watering some flowers, and his dad had gone back to tinkering in the workshop. Daniel picked up his phone to check his messages. A friend had texted, "Where you at? You've been off the grid." Instead of replying right away, he took a deep breath and looked around. The air felt calm, peaceful, like a long overdue apology. He was living a long overdue. That evening, after dinner with his family, Daniel lay in his old bed. He gazed out the window at the dark sky. No stars were visible, but a strange sense of light glowed inside him. "I'm home," he whispered to himself. "Maybe not exactly the home of my childhood anymore, but a piece of me will always be here." Late that night, as he reflected in silence, Keanu's words came back to him. "Sometimes a single step, even if it's late, can rewrite a lifetime." That's exactly what he felt he was living. The shadows of the past might not fade easily, and he and his parents might still clash at times, but at least now they were talking, listening to each other. That was a big step. Before drifting off, he noticed Keanu's conference announcement still saved on his phone. In that moment, he wrote a note to himself. "I need to thank him. He helped me turn a new page." Did Daniel's newfound peace make you want to reach out to your own family? Send this story to them and say, "I've missed you." In the comments, share a moment when you reconnected with your family. And let's make this story even more special together. Will Daniel's dream of thanking Keanu Reeves come true? And what surprise awaits him in the final chapter that will change everything? Don't miss the big finale. The grand finale, the power of reconnection. After spending a few days at his family home, Daniel felt it was time to head back. He packed his bag and, before catching his bus, sat with his parents in the living room for one last chat. This time, seeing their faces where the pain of years had been replaced by hope and reconciliation, filled him with joy. After a brief goodbye, he walked quietly to the door. Just then, his dad called after him. "Hey, you'll come back, right? I've got more stories to tell, and maybe we can do something together." Those words touched Daniel's heart like the flutter of a butterfly. He smiled softly and nodded. "Of course I'll be back. Things will never be the same again." At the bus station, a thought struck him. I need to thank Keanu Reeves. Determined to act on it, he pulled out his phone, went to the conference registration site, and wrote a short email to the organizers. He poured out his story, how he'd found the courage to reunite with his family, and how Keanu's words had sparked a life-changing transformation. Maybe he won't read it, Daniel thought, but I just want to get this off my chest. Hitting send lightened his heart. As the bus pulled away, he looked out the window, watching the road unfold in silence. I spent a lifetime forgetting this home, but it was always a safe harbor I could return to, he reflected. The next day, back in the city, a notification popped up on his phone. He had a reply to his email. An assistant from the conference team wrote that they'd forward Daniel's message to Keanu Reeves. He smiled, thinking, no way, but you never know, maybe, just maybe, his words would reach the right person. As he settled back into his routine, he whispered to himself, "Thank you," before closing the email. A conference, a few sentences, the courage to face his fears. It had all led him to his family's doorstep. A late apology could indeed open the door to a warm home. A few weeks later, Daniel came home from work, tired but at peace. His phone rang with an unknown number. Hesitant, he answered, and a kind woman's voice came through. "Hi, this is Sophia, one of the assistants working with Mr. Reeves. He read your email and was deeply moved by your story. Would you like to set up a meeting?" His heart raced so fast, he could barely speak. Is this a prank? He thought, but the voice was sincere. Keanu Reeves wanted to meet Daniel in person, to talk, maybe just for a short while, about his journey of reconciliation. Whether it was a publicity move or a genuine human gesture, Daniel didn't care. He was over the moon. Keeping his cool, he agreed and got the details for the meeting. The day of the meeting arrived, and Daniel sat nervously in the designated cafe. He didn't expect much, maybe just a few minutes, but even that felt unreal. Moments later, he saw that familiar figure walk in. Moving lightly, even without whispers of Keanu Reeves, Daniel knew it was him. Keanu approached with a calm, genuine smile. "Hi, Daniel," he said. "Hi, Mr. Reeves." Daniel stammered, still in disbelief. After a brief handshake, they found a small table and sat down. Curious eyes glanced their way, but Keanu nodded gently, as if to say the attention didn't matter. "Thank you so much for meeting me," Daniel whispered. Keanu looked at him and said, "Out of all the letters I read, yours really touched me. Your bravery in facing your family reminds people it's never too late. Hearing about it means a lot to me." Daniel couldn't speak for a few seconds. The questions that had swirled in his mind while watching Keanu on stage were now turning into answers. Seeing that Keanu could be a helping hand, not just in movies, but in real life, gave him immense trust and inspiration. Their conversation was short but profound. Daniel shared updates about his family, and Keanu talked about how stories like his inspired him. When Daniel ended with, "It happened because of you," Keanu raised a hand to stop him. "No, it happened because of you. I might have been a small spark, but you're the one who took the step, who found the courage." In that moment, Daniel realized the story had begun and ended with himself. Keanu had simply offered a few words, a bit of guidance. Nothing changes unless you take that step. After about half an hour, they stood to leave. Tears welled in Daniel's eyes as he said goodbye. Keanu smiled warmly, saying, "All the best to you," before walking away. Watching him go, Daniel vowed never to lose faith in the idea that even in our darkest moments, a small light can lead to a new beginning. For both Daniel, who mended the broken ties with his family, and Keanu Reeves, who inspired him, that day marked the start of something new. Sometimes a late apology is worth a lifetime. And sometimes all it takes is a conference, a few words, an unexpected meeting to change a life forever, if you're willing to look deep within. Daniel glanced at his phone one last time, no longer a stranger to his family. He was a man who'd taken his first step past his fears. The door opened by a long overdue apology might just show him new horizons for the rest of his life. He turned and walked away, the sunlight hitting his face as he smiled softly. The past was no longer a burden. It had become a story that pushed him forward. Daniel's incredible journey moved you too, didn't it? Send this story to a friend and say, let's make up. You might start a new chapter just like Daniel did. In the comments, share the strongest emotion the story stirred in you and become part of our community.